Welcome to this presentation. My name is Linda Cabrelas, and I am the Director of the Utah Innovation Center. This 101 workshop will discuss the federal Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Programs, known as SBIR, STTR, and also known as America's Seed Fund. This will include a discussion of the resources our office provides, as well as more about this program. So let's get started. Today, we're going to cover how the Utah Innovation Center supports small businesses interested in the program, the federal SBIR STTR program themselves, solicitations and topics, qualifications, what a company and a team need to have in order to be eligible for these programs, how to find a champion, the importance of commercialization, and next steps, including how to get consultations and something exciting for those companies in the state of Utah, the Utah Technology Innovation Funding Program. The Utah Innovation Center has been around since 2008, and we work with small businesses in the state of Utah to help them win this competitive funding. We've helped companies receive well over $50 million in direct awards, and there's been an additional over $100 million in follow-on awards. We're also the proud recipient of the Tibbetts Award. The Tibbetts Award is named after a gentleman by the name of Roland Tibbetts, and he had a distinguished career and had decided he wanted to give back. He came to the National Science Foundation in the late 70s and decided he would only be there for about a year. He ended up being there for a number of years because he had a huge influence on beginning the Small Business Innovation Research Program. He saw the amount of money that was given through grants and awards to universities and to national labs, and saw the need for some of that money and funding to go to small businesses, since they were the ones who would eventually commercialize the technology. And so he suggested a pilot program with the NSF. They accepted it. And in the early 1980s, it became a program. And now there are 11 federal agencies that participate in setting aside a small percentage of funding to go to small businesses. So there's an award that's given on an annual basis, and the Innovation Center is the recipient of the Tibbetts Award. We've also recently been awarded the FAST Award. The FAST Award is the Federal and State Technology Partnership Award through the Small Business Administration. And this helps organizations get the word out. So we increase the number of companies and resources that go to small businesses who are interested in competing in the SBIR STTR space. So let's talk a little bit more about this program. So right now, it's about $4 billion annually that are given to small businesses across the country through a competitive program. There are two parts. So the Small Business Innovation Research, as I mentioned, came around in the early 1980s. And this requires right now that about 3.2% of any agency that has an extramural research budget over $100 million, that they set aside 3.2% in a pot for SBIR, and this goes to small businesses. 10 years after this SBIR program came about, the Small Business Technology Transfer Program was formed, or STTR, and that currently requires any agency that has an extramural research budget over $1 billion to set aside just under 0.5%, so 0.45% is set aside for the STTR program. This program, as I mentioned, has been around for 40 years, SBIR. It was up for reauthorization in the latter part of 2022. It was extended now for an additional 3 years, and that funding level is specified by federal law. Right now, we're at the 3.2% for SBIR and 0.45% for STTR. So to be eligible, a company must be for-profit, be 51% owned by individuals who are citizens or permanent residents in the United States, and have 500 or fewer employees, including affiliates. And you might think 500 employees sounds like quite a few, and it's true. Companies with that many employees can participate. Many of the companies who participate in this program are much smaller. Even the National Science Foundation will have companies that are maybe just a couple of people or maybe up to 10, but you don't have to be a large company to participate, but you can up to 500 employees, but you're able to participate as long as you fit all of these eligibility requirements. To work with our office, the Utah Innovation Center, we just ask that you be headquartered in Utah. So this is a competitive 3-phase program. It starts with phase 1, and this is the startup phase where you're proving feasibility of your technology or your idea. These performance times are usually between 6 and 12 months and about $150,000 to $275,000. That can vary. It just depends on the agency. There's some that's a little bit less, and there's some that can be a little bit more. And the point of the phase one is you're proving the technical merit or feasibility of your idea. Once you've been awarded a phase one, then you have the opportunity to go on and apply for a phase two. This is usually a 2-year project. Again, the money is about $750,000 to $1.5 million. And this is where you're expanding on the phase one results. It's really important here that you understand your commercialization pathway. 40% of the win will be based on how well you describe that pathway. Most of the agencies require you to have a commercialization plan in phase two, and some have a smaller plan or a smaller section in phase one. But you need to not only have a great idea, but you have to understand how you're going to get it to market and that you have customers that are interested in what you're doing. In phase three, that's where innovation moves into the marketplace. There's not specific SBIR funding for phase three. This is where you're either finding private investment or maybe there's some other types of federal funding that you might be able to apply for. And many of the agencies have supplemental financing or funding. Sometimes you can get an additional phase two award. There's different programs among the different agencies. So the best benefit of this program is that these truly are non-equity position dollars, meaning that you do not lose any technology ownership, you do not lose intellectual property, and you do not have to pay back funds. These are not loans. It truly is an investment in your technology and in your company. You can see the one caveat there is for intellectual property. We know of only one instance where there was a time when, and it's been a number of years ago, that the technology, it was night vision goggles, was needed for our national security. That was used and then licensed back to the company. But that's the only instance that we ever know of that happening. The other thing to remember is if you've done academic grants before, there is a difference between those and with the SBIR, STTR program. So the focus of an academic grant is truly about the science. It's about the theory and the knowledge and discovery and research. When you move on to SBIR and STTR, it's taking that science, but adding a product. You're coming to develop a product based on the science where you're going to actually commercialize something. So you know about your competitive advantage. You're developing something novel and you have a product that you're developing. And that's the difference between this program and when we think of other types of academic grant programs. Before we go too far, I wanted to explain that there are some differences between SBIR and STTR. So with the Small Business Innovation Research Program, there are the different funding mechanism for each. However, when we think of partnering, so partnering with a nonprofit research institution like a university or a national lab, that is allowed under SBIR. When you go to STTR, that is required. So it requires that you do work with and partner with a nonprofit research institution. When you look at the second row on budget and work requirements, for an SBIR, you are allowed to outsource up to a third of the budget in a phase one, and that moves to up to 50% in phase two. In STTR, there's some different work requirements. The small business is required to do at least 40% of the budget. The research partner is required to do at least 30% of the budget. And then you can see you have 30% that would be up for grab. It could go to the small business or the research partner, or it might be used for outside consultants. That's up to you to decide. That last row on principal investigator, the principal investigator is the person that leads the project. For an SBIR, the primary employment must be with the small business, which is greater than 51%. And then for an STTR, the principal investigator can either be with the research institution or the small business, except for NSF. There's one difference there. The NSF does require that the principal investigator be with the small business. But if you're working under an STTR, you are also required to have a co-investigator with the research institution. So now let's look at the federal agencies that participate in these programs. So those that are bolded in orange participate in both SBIR and STTR, which means that they have a research budget at least of $1 billion. The others all only participate in SBIR. So with Department of Agriculture, that's the newest one that moved over that threshold, that now they participate in SBIR and STTR. The Department of Commerce, the two programs there are NIST and NOAA, so Standards and Technology and Oceans and Atmosphere. They both participate in the SBIR program. The Department of Defense is the largest component that participates. They have about half of the money, and I'll show you that in just a moment. They have about 13 components and services that participate. Department of Education, Department of Energy, Department of Health and Human Services, which the biggest component is National Institutes of Health, Homeland Security, Transportation, Environmental Protection Agency, NASA, and the National Science Foundation. So each of these agencies have certain research and development topics that they put out. Some are open topics, and then they accept proposals on different deadlines throughout the year. This gives you a visual of the budget distribution. So you can see that the Department of Defense has about half of the money. Health and Human Services is next. And then we have Department of Energy, NASA, and National Science Foundation. And in that small gray piece of the pie, we include USDA because they are just brand new coming into the STTR world as well. We have Homeland Security, Department of Commerce, Department of Transportation, Education, and EPA. In order to be eligible, the technology that you're developing needs to be high risk. They fund innovation that's early stage projects. When they first came out with the language, it was that these are important or critical inventions and innovations that may not be considered by other types of venture funding. Some examples that have been under these programs include the internet, the GPS system, the Qualcomm chip, and a Better Life Vest. So the Better Life Vest, you might think, well, maybe that's not super high risk. That might not be an early stage project. And you might be right. But what happened was that there were a number of people that were still drowning in our country. For 3 years in a row, Health and Human Services put out a topic where they were looking for a better life vest. So sometimes these projects can be very high tech and high risk. And other times there's a problem that's not being solved. It might even be for a small population, but it's a serious problem that's not being solved. And so oftentimes you can find an opportunity to help solve that problem through these programs. We always say to not self-select out. It could be across any of the agencies, you might find opportunities. There might be something with National Science Foundation that they might have education funding or some of the other agencies. So you never self-select out. And chances are you'd be eligible for more than one of the agencies and their solicitations. So there can be 20 to 26 solicitations per year. I haven't counted for a while, so there could even be more. But these come out throughout the year. They can differ in timing from year to year. Some of the agencies only put out one solicitation or call for proposals once a year, and others will put out multiple solicitations. There also can be grants or contracts or both. So many of the granting agencies include National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, and others. Contracting agencies are like Department of Defense and NASA, Department of Transportation. And then some of the agencies have both, where they have a grant and a contract. So for example, Health and Human Services puts out an omnibus solicitation, which is for grants, and it has 3 different due dates throughout the year. However, they also put out a contracting solicitation that usually comes out in the fall, where it's for very specific solutions that they're looking for. And it's good to know whether you're dealing with grants, contracts, or both. There's some different rules that apply. With grants, you're able to talk to program managers anytime, or with contracting agencies, once they start accepting proposals for that solicitation, there's a blackout period where you're not able to speak to the program manager because they wanted to make a fair and effective process across the board. So it's good to know what you're looking for, and our office can help you with that. This is a general idea of the solicitations that come out each year. You can see we've listed up on the far left, you've got Homeland Security and NIST and NOAA. And as you go across these, you can see that there are certain times that they're open. Sometimes it's in a pre-release period, meaning if it's a contracting agency, you're able to actually speak to a topic author in the pre-release period. And then there are others that you can see, like Health and Human Services. They have multiple dates throughout the year where they're often accepting proposals. The National Science Foundation is very similar, as well as Department of Defense. So we're going to take a minute now to go look and see how we can actually go and find a topic. So this is the SBIR.gov, and this is where you can find everything you want to know about what's happening with America's Seed Fund that's with the SBIR and STTR programs. There are a lot of opportunities here. We're going to just take a moment and go through how to find a topic. So you're going to go, you can see these tabs across the top here. I'm going to go to funding and go to topic area. And when I go here, I have an option to do either open, future, or closed. We've never found a lot of value in future topics. However, you can go to open topics and put in a keyword and search for something. You can also go to the closed topics. And you might say, like, why would I look at closed topics? Well, it might be that you look in open and there's nothing there for what you're looking at. But you can go to closed topics because it's possible that something just recently closed that was applicable to the work you're doing. I'm looking at open topics. Let's look in here. I'm going to put in machine learning just for an example to see what comes out. So you're going to go through here and I can see with machine learning, I have 7 results. And so with those 7 results, it tells me here there's a topic, artificial intelligence. This is with the National Science Foundation. They're offering both SBIR and STTR. And I can see that it opened in November of 2022, and it doesn't close until November of 2023. And there are also multiple dates. So I can go here and hover over there. So I can see I had dates in March and July and November of 2023. So any of those I could possibly apply for. There's also a robotics topic here, again, with the National Science Foundation. And it looks like we have a few with the National Science Foundation. Here's a topic that is machine learning focused, and this is with the Department of Health and Human Services, National Institutes of Health. So we can see again when it was released, when it was open, and again, there are multiple dates. It looks like this one closes in 2025. So they've given us quite a runway of when we can apply for this. So you can look through here and put in whatever keyword you think you might have. You could try something else, like maybe I'm just looking, if I do something very general, like if I do energy, that's probably not going to be a good idea. Here, there's 17 results. And so probably because maybe Department of Energy isn't out right now, but I can see again, I have Health and Human Services, National Science Foundation. But if Department of Energy were open, I might get so many more hits. So you want to try to be a little bit more specific and find a keyword, like try some different keywords to see what you come up with. So let's quickly go to close. And now if I look at energy, I come up with almost 5,300 results. So that's where you want to say, try to drill down a little bit more when you're searching for topics. The one other area that I wanted to show you is here under reports. You can go to award data. And here I can put in a keyword. I can put in a company name. I can go through and find other companies that have won something. For example, let's just look at this first one. So this is a simplified steam electrolysis. I can see this was awarded in 2023. This company is located in Wisconsin. I can see an abstract of the project that they proposed. So this was a funded project. It looks like it is a phase 1 right here. It says it's a phase 1 SBIR. And here I can look and say, this is what they came up with. This is what they're proving. This is what the work that they're doing. And I can find, like, get an idea for one thing, like I can do my keyword search and say, who's been funded? What have they been funded for? It also might be that I'm working on something very similar to this company. And here I have a contact, principal investigator plus the business contact, which in this case is the same person. I have a phone number. I have an email. I might reach out to this individual and talk to this person about the work that we're doing. And could there be possible collaboration? So there are a lot of reasons why you can also look at these other programs. And I just wanted to share that with you. So we'll go back to our presentation. So what you also want to do is once you've found a topic, you want to find a champion, and our office can help you with this. So you can contact program officers. This is their job, and you can begin a two-way dialogue. You want to see, and not all the agencies allow this, but many of them do, if you have a chance to go to a conference or to reach out by email, contact these individuals, because you want to get some feedback to see if you're a good fit for that agency and possibly what you can do. They might have ideas or suggestions. So this is something that you want to do. We also have that third bullet there that you can create your own SBIR, STTR topic. We had worked with a company a few years back, and they had an idea, but they never saw it come out in one of the solicitations. So they contacted someone within the Department of Defense, and they weren't making a lot of traction. So finally, they went and did some research, and they wrote up a topic that was very much in the same format as this Department of Defense component. They sent that off, and it did come out in one of the next solicitations. So this is not guaranteed. It doesn't always work. There's some of the agencies that allow it and some that don't, but it's also something to consider. Now, with this new reauthorization that just happened a few months back, there are many of the agencies that now have open topics. So you can look, and if you have an idea that's going to benefit all of us, then you have a potential to submit that idea and to put in a proposal. So to go in and try to contact someone within one of the federal agencies, we suggest putting together an executive summary. So this sample here, it's 1 to 2 pages. It's about a half a page on the technology innovation, the technical objectives and challenges, a little bit smaller portion on the market opportunity and the company and team. This is the format that the National Science Foundation uses. So you are able to present this. They call it a project pitch. They have a form that you fill out, you submit it, and within a couple of weeks, you find out whether the National Science Foundation thinks you're a good fit for them. Once you've done this, they can come back and they say, no, we don't think you're a good fit. You oftentimes have the opportunity to tweak that a little bit to try to convince them. But the same type of method works for many of the other federal agencies. This is the information that they're interested. When you think of number 2, the technical objectives and challenges, that would be the project that you would propose in a phase 1. So thinking of a 6-month project for about $150,000, what would you do? What would be your technical objectives? What would be your milestones? How would you describe the work that you would do? So below, you can see in that orange box, we say with NSF, this is called the project pitch. With NIH, they don't use technical objectives. They use specific aims. So it would be a different type of format that you would put together. It's a specific aims page, and our office can help get you that format. And we're happy to review your executive summaries, give you comments, and then we can help you find the right person to send these to get some feedback from one of the federal agencies. The principal investigator has a very specific role on the project. So this individual must be employed by the small business, and this is always at time of award. It's not like when you put in the proposal, you don't have to say, oh, that person is here now, but you're saying at the time of the award, your principal investigator will be with the small business. And that's again for SBIR. And recalling that for STTR, there's some differences. You can have oftentimes your principal investigator might be with the research institution. The PI must work for the company at least 51% of the time, and they cannot work full-time elsewhere. We can see here PhDs might be beneficial to the National Science Foundation and Health and Human Services. However, they will say over and over again that that's not required. They just want to know that whoever is the principal investigator, that they have the technical expertise to lead the project. We found that many of the reviewers with NSF and Health and Human Services are PhDs, so they might be able to relate better to having someone on your team that's a PhD. But again, the agencies say that is not required. Some of the other individuals on your team might include scientists, engineers, innovators. You should look for experts in the industry to be on your team. They might be an advisor or they could serve as a consultant. You look for business people to help. Oftentimes with the phase 1, these individuals aren't paid under direct cost for the proposal. However, you want to make sure that you have those individuals around you, because the whole idea of this is not to just prove out a great idea, but it's also to get it to market. You also want to look to the future. So what do we need to get this to market? Are there regulatory constraints? Are there other things that we need to be aware of? So we want to make sure we have the whole team in place. And also the Utah Innovation Center, we consider ourselves a member of your team. We're here to advise you, to help you. We'll review versions of your documents, help you with the process. We're here to help as well. So as I mentioned earlier, commercialization is very important. You need to understand the market. Who are your customers? What is the value proposition you offer? And then who are your competitors? And oftentimes some companies will say, well, we don't have any competition, but you even have to look at the way things are being done now, the status quo, that's your competition. Is there a reason to move us off of what we're doing now? So always understand the commercialization landscape for your product and for your technology. In a phase one, you have to demonstrate that you have an understanding of the market. Again, the competition, who are your competitors, who could be potential partners. And then you have the opportunities to include letters of support in with your phase one proposal. The letters of support are very important. This should come from a customer or potential customer saying, not that you're just a great person or this is a great company, but that the work you're doing is very important. They're very interested. And if it proves to be feasible, they could be a potential customer. Those are the types of letters you're looking for. In phase two, you have to kind of step up the game a little bit. So this is where you have to have a commercialization plan. Are you licensing? How are you manufacturing? Again, letters of support play a very important part. And again, this is 40% of winning is the commercialization pathway and understanding. So how can you spend the money? So in the yes category, we have salaries and fringe benefits. The majority of the funding can be used for that and usually is. You can purchase supplies to replace them. You can lease equipment. There's an overhead rate that you can include to cover all of your extra items, such as accounting and just running your business. You can pay for a consultant. And then you get that last row there, a fee or profit of up to 7%. So this, you always want to take the full 7% because this is money that you can do anything with. You don't have to wait. You don't have to justify what you're using the money for. But this can be used for maybe some of the things that can't be used in the no column. In the no column, this money cannot be used for lawyers or patents, for marketing, computers and construction, creating a lab. They expect you to be a bona fide business already. And then with travel, there's only certain times when you can pay for travel when it's required by the federal agency. So under lawyers and patents and marketing, you can see that we have the little asterisk there. In the last few years, the programs have changed where they now allow technical and business assistance or TABA. So with TABA, this can be used for market research. It can be used for marketing. You can pay attorneys. This is all to pay a third-party vendor. This can be up to $6,500 in a phase one and up to $50,000 in a phase two. And it all varies by agency. Sometimes these are funds that are extra above the budget cap. Sometimes they're within the budget limit. And then some agencies or maybe components, like with bigger agencies like Department of Defense, might not offer TABA at all. So you have to request TABA within the proposal to receive it. Some of the agencies have vendors already that you can use, but you are always able to choose your own vendor, and there are certain requirements for that. So what would next steps be? So first, you have to complete registrations and to connect with us. So we have a partner within the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, Apex Accelerator, and they help with government contracting. So if you are ready to sell to the government, you can reach out to Apex Accelerator. Also, if you are having struggles with some of your registrations, you can connect with them and they can offer help. You can connect with us. We have consultations and office hours that we provide. We can review your executive summary. We can provide a checklist of required tasks. And what we do is every time a solicitation comes out from one of the federal agencies, we prepare all of the items that must be done, including registrations, including a letter of intent, all of the things that need to be done in order for you to apply. We put that together so you can reach out to our office, and we are happy to provide that to you. The registration process can be quite cumbersome. Even when we talk to federal agencies, it's just the way it is. So you must have a business license, so a tax identification number or a federal tax ID. The required registration here, we can say it can take up to 8 weeks or longer. And that or longer is a thing to look at. There was some changes this past year, so it can take a bit of time. So we always suggest if you are looking at applying to the government for funding, that you always get this registration process started and well on its way. So you need to have a checking account in the company name. A system for award management or SAM.gov is one that might take a little bit longer. You obtain a unique entity identifier as you register for SAM, and this is how you're paid. So there's a lot of extra due diligence done in this part of the registration process. They want to make sure you're a real business, that you have a real company, that you have a real checking account. And so all of those things must be verified. So it takes a little bit of time. And there has been fraud in the past. So I think for all of us, we want them to be good stewards of U.S. taxpayer dollars. So we want to make sure that this is going to real companies who are here in the U.S. to do the work. As I mentioned, you obtain the Unique Entity Identifier, UEI. There are some of the registrations that require an authorized organizational representative, which that's done through grants.gov. That means it's the person that actually can submit the application for you and is legally responsible for everything and for the money. And then there's the SBA, the SBIR.gov/registration. And then you can register with other agencies of high interest. And there have been a lot of scams. When you go to System for Award Management, you might be on the site, sam.gov, and then you can easily be redirected to another site. So you want to be really careful. Don't look at pop-ups, just avoid them. We've had companies that have paid, $300 or $600 or even more to have some of these companies come in and do the registrations for you. These are completely free. You do not need to pay. And basically someone that's doing it for you is basically needing to get all your information anyway. So we just suggest avoid those scams and just do the registrations yourself. There's a reality check of how much time this takes. For a first proposal, it's going to take about 200 hours. For subsequent proposals, maybe a second, third, or fourth, you might save a little bit of time, but not a lot of time, because each of the proposals need to be very targeted to the topic, to the agency mission. You're going to have changes along the way. So just make sure you give yourself enough time to actually complete these projects. This is a timeline of what your weeks might look like. You usually have at least 6 weeks before a project or a proposal is due. So in the first week, you're making sure first that your registrations are already done, because at week 1, you might be too late. You want to make sure those are well on their way. You can contact our Innovation Center. We're going to talk in a few minutes about the Utah Technology Innovation Funding Program in more detail, but it provides microgrants and non-recourse loans for companies working in this space. And then you can work with us to develop your executive summary, and you can contact a program manager at one of the agencies and try to see how well you align with what they're looking for and what your proposal should be. In week 2, you're going to actually outline the project. And this includes who's going to do the work, where will it be done, how will it be done, thinking about all of the questions that you might answer. And then you'll do biosketches, letters of support, and get letters if you need a consultant letter or anything else. You kind of get that out. The biosketches and the letters, the reason why we suggest doing those early on in the project, it's because you're waiting for someone else to get something to you. So we always suggest you do that a little bit earlier in the process. By week 3, you're going to draft your technical proposal. You're going to have all your ancillary documents. You're going to have a budget and a budget justification. And by about week 4, you're finalizing all of those. You've got your letters of support back and you're finalizing all of those documents. Again, when you have a good draft, we're happy to review any documents. We have good technical reviewers on our team, and we're happy to provide that expertise free of charge to Utah companies. In week 5, you're going to have your second final draft of your proposal and your budget. You're going to make sure you've been able to get on the submission site and you've checked that to make sure you're logged in and you're good to submit. And then in week 6, it's the final documents. There's a narrative and you're making sure all the documents work together. You're going to do a final document check, and then you're going to submit well before the deadline. So you don't want to wait till the very last moment on the deadline day to submit. Sometimes you can run into issues. So we always suggest that you submit early. And again, it takes about 200 hours for a competitive proposal, and please include the Utah Innovation Center to help you along the way. This is a timeline of what you can think of when you are working through this process. So on the far left, we've got that you have a solicitation that's released and you find a good match for your work. You submit a phase 1 proposal, so you at least have 6 weeks to submit that proposal. And then you wait for a minute, but usually within about 3 to 6 months after submission, you find out if you're being awarded. The money can actually take maybe another 3 to 6 months. It just depends. So then you do the phase 1 work, usually SBIR 6 months, usually STTR 12 months for phase 1, but that can vary. You finish that, you do a final report, you submit the report, and then you're ready to submit your phase 2. So again, that can take some time. So you are waiting to see if you hear back about the phase 2. And this is where UTIF can help. We have funding that the Utah Technology Innovation Funding Program offers, non-recourse loans to companies that are submitting a phase 2 proposal. You simply need to work with our office. and make sure that you followed all the guidelines and you've got it in there on time. And then we're able to provide that non-recourse loan. After that, once you've received your phase 2, you're looking for commercialization and moving on. And so what we suggest is that you have a strategy where you can submit multiple proposals. It might be to different agencies. It will for sure be for different work. You can't be funded for the same work among the different federal agencies. However, you could submit the same proposal to 2 agencies. And if you were fortunate enough to win both, you would have to make a decision on which one you're going to accept. So here are the reports. After you win, there are requirements that you keep your agency contacts up to date on the progress of your work. There can be anywhere from 2 to 7 updates. It's your opportunity to make your contract manager your best friend. You're going to keep them informed. You're not going to make too many changes, or if you make significant changes, you're going to check with them first. And then when you deal with the money, you're going to make sure you keep it in separate federal dollars. You're going to spend it as you said you would, or you're going to get permission to change. So the Utah Innovation Center will help you. We'll do consultations. We can help you figure out how to find a topic match. We provide UTIF funding. Once you submit SBIR phase 1, there's a microgrant that we can offer you, but you need to apply ahead of time. We will guide you through the process, evaluate your proposal. We'll help edit your proposal, and we'll also help you submit. And you can see the one thing that's not there is writing. In the early days of our office, we used to have grant writers that we worked with, and it didn't work out well. And I'm not sure why, but I think out of about 20, we only had 1 win. We feel like it's better if you can find someone that you know that you can stay in it and show your passion through it, but work with that person very closely. Or as you write it, if you can write a good draft, we can help you go through the process of polishing it and getting it into a more competitive format. So I'd mentioned Utah Technology Innovation Funding, or UTIF. So this is a fairly new program to the state of Utah. We're able to offer microgrants to new SBIR, STTR applicants. And then we have non-recourse loans for those who have won a phase 1 and they're working on the phase 2 and submitting. That helps bridge the gap with additional funding. And you can find additional information at that link at the bottom. So there is a portal that you would log into. If you've not done it before, you're going to request login credentials. And we ask that this is all done 4 weeks before the submission is due. The microgrants are $3,000 as the standard award. And there's an additional $2,000 for a company that's woman-owned, small disadvantaged, or is located in a rural county in Utah. The same thing for non-recourse loans. We have $50,000 with $10,000 additional funding for those criteria, a total of $60,000. And then also a company is eligible to receive up to 2 non-recourse loans. This is our team. So we are very happy to help you any way we can. If we can provide or answer any questions, we're happy to do that. Thank you so much for joining this SBIR 101 workshop.